All right. In a week that has felt like a year, this is the week that the Trump administration paused all federal grants and so many programs across the country. So I'm going to read from the Washington Post. Jeff Stein, Jacob Bogage, and Emily Davies. The White House Budget Office is ordering a pause to all grants and loans dispersed by the federal government, according to an internal memo sent to agencies Monday. In a two-page document, Matthew J. Vaith, the acting director of the White House Office Management and Budget, instructs federal agencies to temporarily pause all activities related to obligations or disbursement of all federal financial assistance. The memo, a copy of which has been obtained by the Washington Post, calls for each agency to perform a comprehensive analysis. And here's the important part. If you zoned out, if we're in class and you're kind of looking at your phone, here's where you need to listen. You ready? To ensure its grant and loan programs are consistent with President Donald Trump's executive orders, which aimed to ban federal diversity, equality, and inclusion initiatives and limit clean energy spending, among other measures. So abruptly, without notice, without any kind of warning or ramp up, without any kind of training or guidance, it's just all loans and assistance are paused. I mean, this affects Meals on Wheels, which helps to feed 2 million folks across the country every day. It includes suicide hotlines at the VA. It includes so many things. I'm going to read from a CNN article. Medicaid agencies were unable to access federal funds for the health insurance program that covers more than 72 million low-income Americans. National Association of Medicaid Directors confirmed Wednesday it had received word Medicaid would not be part of the funding freeze. But what would be? Meals on Wheels, universities trying to figure out how a funding freeze affects their research programs. Researchers across the country were told to stop work on grant-funded projects. These are things that have been agreed upon, that the government already said, here's the money coming for your grant, for your research, for things we think are important enough that we have given money for them. The National Science Foundation, the tribal nations, folks in governments across the country, whether it's people being paid salaries or whether it's affordable housing programs. In Colorado, the Community Health Network said that this affected 857,000 Coloradans. Nonprofits across the country will see absolute devastation. It will, quote, cut a hole in the already frayed safety net through which tens of thousands of people who depend on nonprofit programs will fall. That's a quote coming out of Connecticut. Head Start. A lot of you know about the Head Start program for low-income children from birth to age 5. Serves about 800,000 people. Some of them were unable to access payment management. So, friends, we're talking about no warning to programs that help who? I don't know. Your grandmother. Your elder who gets Meals on Wheels because they're old. They can't cook. They live by themselves. Kids who are 2 or 3 or 4 come from a low-income family in the most prosperous nation ever to exist on Earth. Sorry, no warning, no training, no ramp up, no indication, just you're not going to eat today. People, Medicaid, who just want a chance to be healthy in the most prosperous nation in the history of the world. People who've worked, people who've tried, people who are citizens. Sorry, the sick and the young and the elderly. Hey, we didn't have time to call you and let you know, but we're going to just cut off all that. And when you get in line, or at least your program heads and their initiatives get in line with the ruler, we'll turn the money back on. That's the message. We're here to rule. Congress has already approved this money, but you know what? You need to get in line with the president. And if you do, we might turn the money back on so that the elderly, the children, and those suffering from health conditions, what Jesus might call the most vulnerable, I don't know, can eat, get care, and generally have a chance to survive and thrive as best as possible. Now, there were a lot of questions when this happens. Is this legal? Is it not legal? Many of you already know that it's been blocked by the courts, and we're going to have more news next week, right? Maybe as you're listening to this. But the attitude of the ruler, the wannabe ruler, has been, this is legal because we say it's legal. And I think this is really important for us to notice today. A piece by Oswin Swubisang and Andrew Perez at Rolling Stone captures this. The quote from the president's attorney, Alina Habba. What your opinion on what the law is doesn't really matter. It's what the White House Counsel says and what our Attorney General of the United States says. There's no reference here to the courts. There's no reference here to prior judgments or precedent. There's no reference here to Congress. It is simply what matters is what the White House Counsel and the Attorney General say. That's it. The White House Counsel, meaning the president's lawyer, meaning the president's right-hand man. The man whose interest is in the president, not in the American people, not in the law, not in law and order. Asked by a reporter at a briefing to explain who advised the president on the legality of telling government agencies that they don't have to spend money that was already appropriated by Congress. Trump's White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, replied, so White House counsel's office believes that this is within the president's power to do it, and therefore he's doing it. Here's the message, going back to everything I just said in the first segment. They don't want to govern, they want to rule. When asked if and why their actions are justified, Donald Trump doesn't point to evidence when it comes to the crash. He points to, I have common sense, and thus I know it was a woman or a non-white person who caused this. And then asked, well, you turned off the funding for Americans everywhere, including children, including those with serious health issues, including the elderly. Do you feel bad about that? Did that seem like a good idea? Is that legal? Why would you do that? The counsel's office believes that this is within the president's power to do it, and therefore he's doing it. He has the power to do it, so he's doing it. Not, this is good for Americans. Not, we're trying to protect Americans. We're trying to help you. We're trying to... Nope. This is not a matter of, hey, it doesn't seem like it. I understand there's confusion, but we're actually doing something that will help. Give us a minute. Let me refer you to this document so you can read up on what we're up to, and you can understand that actually this is something that we think will actually have better outcomes for more other places, or it throughout the country, in other times, and so on and so, in other ways, is what I'm trying to say. Hey, you asked me about this, and guess what? We have a plan, and we think everyone's going to end up better for this. You just got to trust us for a second. We know it's hard, but bear with us. That might sound like that manager at work you don't like. That might sound like your parent. And that's never easy for us to accept that kind of answer, right? At least that answer is telling you, hey, I care about you and I understand what you're saying. I'm trying as a leader to do something different, and I do think it's going to end up helping all of us in the long run. So it may not make sense right now, and it may hurt a little bit right now, but just give me a minute, give me a day, give me a week. Nah. He's got the power to do it, so he's doing it. He doesn't want to govern, he wants to rule. He is not here to represent the people. He's here for him. That's the message. Loud and clear.